My entitled twin sister destroyed my designer wedding dress the night before my wedding because she was jealous she wasn't getting married first, but then our rich aunt stepped in and did something that made her regret everything. I, 27F, really need your advice about a horrible situation with my twin sister Sarah, 27F, that happened at my wedding last month. I'm still processing everything and could use some outside perspective. Growing up, Sarah and I were close like most twins, but there was always an underlying competition between us. Our parents tried their best to treat us equally, but Sarah always had to be first at everything. From the moment we were born, she made sure to come out 3 minutes before me, and she never let me forget it. I'm the older twin, she would constantly remind me, especially when she wanted something. I should get to choose first. Our childhood was filled with these little power struggles. She had to get better grades, had to get her driver's license first, had to get into a better college. If I scored a 95 on a test, she would have a meltdown if she had only got a 94. She even deliberately failed her driver's test the first time when she found out I passed mine, just so she could retake it and get a higher score than me. Most of the time I just let her have her way to keep the peace. Our parents would always say that's just how Sarah is and expect me to be the reasonable one. I remember one Christmas when we were 16, Aunt Linda got us matching Tiffany bracelets. Sarah threw such a fit about us having the same thing that I ended up losing mine just to stop her tears. Years later, I found it hidden in her jewelry box. She had stolen it because she couldn't stand us having identical gifts. The problems really started when I got engaged to my now husband James, 29M, last year. Sarah had been dating her boyfriend Tom for 5 years at that point, and she always bragged about how they would get married first. Every family gathering, she would drop hints about rings and venues, making sure everyone knew she and Tom were practically engaged. The night James proposed, he had arranged a beautiful rooftop dinner with fairy lights and our favorite music. When I called Sarah to share the happy news, her reaction was chilling. There was a long silence, then she whispered, "You knew I was supposed to be first. You always try to steal my spotlight." Then she hung up. She refused to speak to me for weeks and told our family I had stolen her thunder. She even called James's parents and told them we were rushing into marriage and that James had originally been interested in her first, a complete lie. He'd never even met her when we started dating. When she finally started talking to me again, every conversation was filled with backhanded comments. "Oh, you're having a spring wedding? I always imagined getting married in spring. I guess I'll have to pick a different season now. When I eventually get engaged. Or that's a beautiful ring, even if it's smaller than what Tom says he's going to get me." Eventually she calmed down enough to agree to be my maid of honor, though she complained about everything during the wedding planning. Nothing was good enough. She hated the venue, criticized the flowers, made snide comments about the food choices. But I put up with it because she's my sister and I wanted her to be part of my special day. The real drama happened the night before my wedding. I had splurged on my dream dress, a custom designer gown that cost $12,000. Our wealthy Aunt Linda had actually paid for it as her wedding gift to me. The dress was absolutely perfect and I felt like a princess in it. The dress was hanging in my hotel room while my bridesmaids and I had a low-key dinner the night before. Sarah claimed she had a headache and skipped dinner. When we got back to the hotel around 9 p.m., I found Sarah in my room, and my beautiful dress was completely destroyed. She had taken scissors to it, cutting huge holes in the bodice and shredding the delicate lace. The pure white fabric was also stained with what looked like red wine. I completely broke down crying while Sarah just stood there with this smug look on her face. When I asked her how she could do this to me, she laughed, and said, "Now you know how it feels to have something important taken away from you. You knew I was supposed to get married first." I'll never forget the look in her eyes at that moment. There wasn't a trace of remorse or sisterly love, just cold satisfaction at causing me pain. Through my tears, I managed to choke out, "We're twins, Sarah. Why can't you just be happy for me?" She walked over to where I was crumpled on the floor and knelt down, getting right in my face. "Because you don't deserve any of this," she hissed. "You've always been the favorite. Aunt Linda's perfect little angel. Mom and Dad pretend to treat us equally but everyone knows they're prouder of you. Even Tom. I've seen how he looks at you sometimes. Well, now your perfect wedding is ruined, just like you've ruined everything for me." I was shocked. "Is that really what you think? That I'm the favorite? Sarah, our parents have spent our whole lives making excuses for your behavior and forcing me to give in to keep you happy." But she wasn't listening anymore. She just stood up, brushed off her dress, and said with chilling calmness, "I hope you can find something nice at David's bridal in the morning. Though it won't be designer, of course." Then she walked out, leaving me sobbing on the floor surrounded by the ruins of my dream dress. I was hysterical and my bridesmaids had to physically remove Sarah from the room. I called my parents sobbing but they just told me to calm down and that Sarah is going through a hard time. They suggested I try to find a backup dress at a department store in the morning. I couldn't believe they were taking her side after what she'd done. In desperation, I called my Aunt Linda and told her what happened. She was absolutely livid. Not only had Sarah destroyed the expensive dress she'd paid for, But she tried to ruin one of the most important days of my life out of pure spite. Aunt Linda immediately sprang into action. "Sweetheart, dry those tears," she said, her voice steel hard with determination. "No niece of mine is going to have her wedding ruined by a jealous sister. Give me 30 minutes. Part 2. My entitled twin sister destroyed my designer wedding dress the night before my wedding because she was jealous she wasn't getting married first, but then our rich aunt stepped in and did something that made her regret everything. She started making calls right there in my hotel room. It turned out that she had connections to several high-end boutiques through her charity work. Within 20 minutes, she had the owner of an exclusive bridal salon agreeing to open their doors at midnight, just for us. "But Aunt Linda," I protested weakly, "it's impossible to find a dress and get it altered in time." She just squeezed my hand and said, "Nothing's impossible with enough money and the right connections, dear. And after what Sarah did, I'm more than happy to spend whatever it takes." The boutique owner, Maria, was waiting for us when we arrived. She had pulled every designer gown in my size, and her top seamstress was standing by. The first dress I tried on was a stunning Vera Wang that had just arrived that day. It hadn't even been displayed in the store yet. When I stepped out of the dressing room, Aunt Linda gasped and started crying. "This is the one," she said firmly. "It's even more beautiful than the first dress. Sarah did you a favor destroying the other one." The seamstress worked through the night doing the alterations while Maria plied us with champagne and chocolate-covered strawberries. By 6 a.m., the dress was perfect, a masterpiece of silk and hand-beaded lace that made the first dress look plain in comparison. The wedding day dawned bright and clear. My bridesmaids were amazed by the new dress, and several guests later told me they'd never seen a more beautiful bride. Sarah didn't show up, which was honestly a relief, though our parents kept making excuses for her absence. "She's just feeling under the weather," Mom told anyone who asked, avoiding my eyes. Despite the drama of the night before, the ceremony was magical. James teared up when he saw me walking down the aisle, and his vows made everyone cry. Even our wedding photographer said she'd never captured such genuine emotion at a ceremony before. The reception was a blast, everyone danced until midnight, and there was so much love and joy in the room that I almost forgot about the dress incident. Almost. My phone was flooded with missed calls and texts from Sarah, alternating between rage, "How dare you still have the wedding without me," and self-pity, "My own twin sister doesn't want me at her wedding," but I ignored them all. The real karma came a few days later at the family dinner when we got back from our honeymoon. Aunt Linda had insisted on hosting a small welcome home celebration at her mansion. Sarah showed up uninvited, clearly expecting everyone to have forgiven her by then. Aunt Linda stood up and made an announcement that left everyone shocked. She gently tapped her crystal wine glass with a spoon, and the room fell silent. Sarah was sitting at the far end of the table, picking at her food and occasionally shooting me resentful glances. "I have something important to share with everyone," Aunt Linda began, her voice firm but calm. "As many of you know, I've been blessed with financial success in my life. I've always believed that family is everything, which is why I had set up substantial trust funds for both my nieces." Sarah's head snapped up at this, her eyes suddenly alert. Our parents exchanged worried glances. "I had planned to announce this at Christmas," Aunt Linda continued, "but recent events have forced me to reconsider my plans. The trust funds I set up were worth $2 million each." There was an audible gasp from several people at the table. However, after witnessing Sarah's vindictive and cruel behavior towards her sister, I've made some changes. She turned to face Sarah directly. "My dear, I've watched you grow up alongside your sister. I've seen your competitiveness, your need to always be first, your inability to celebrate others' happiness. I hoped you would outgrow it, but instead, it's gotten worse. When you destroyed that wedding dress, you didn't just ruin an expensive piece of clothing, you tried to devastate your twin sister on what should have been the happiest day of her life." Sarah started to protest, but Aunt Linda held up her hand. "Let me finish. I've decided to remove you completely from my will and trust fund arrangements. Everything will now go to your sister and any future children she might have." Sarah burst into tears and started screaming that it wasn't fair. Our parents tried to convince Aunt Linda to reconsider, saying Sarah had just made a mistake in an emotional moment. But Aunt Linda was firm. She said she couldn't trust Sarah with that kind of money when she had shown such cruelty and immaturity. Sarah was absolutely beside herself after Aunt Linda's announcement. She immediately started blowing up my phone with hundreds of texts alternating between angry accusations and tearful apologies. Our parents thought I should ask Aunt Linda to forgive her, but I honestly didn't want to. She had tried to ruin my wedding day out of pure jealousy. Actions have consequences. Tom broke up with her last week, saying her behavior at my wedding made him realize she wasn't who he thought she was. Now she's claiming that I've ruined her life and that I planned this all along to hurt her. I've blocked her number, but she keeps making new accounts to harass me. Our parents say I'm being cruel and need to forgive my twin. But I just can't forget what she did. Ida for not asking Aunt Linda to put Sarah back in her will? Edit, wow, this blew up overnight. Thank you all for the supportive comments. To answer some common questions, yes, I did file a police report about the dress destruction. The hotel had security footage of Sarah entering my room. I haven't decided yet if I want to press charges. The new dress Aunt Linda got me was actually a Vera Wang that had just come in and hadn't been advertised yet. It was absolutely stunning and fit perfectly after alterations. Several people asked about Tom. He actually reached out to me yesterday to apologize for not seeing Sarah's true colors sooner. Apparently she had shown controlling and jealous behavior throughout their relationship, but he had made excuses for her. My parents have always enabled Sarah's behavior. They're currently not speaking to Aunt Linda and are threatening to cut contact with me if I don't fix this. Update: it's been 2 weeks since my original post and a lot has happened. First, thank you all for the overwhelming support and advice. You really helped me see that I'm not crazy for maintaining boundaries with Sarah. Part 3. My entitled twin sister destroyed my designer wedding dress the night before my wedding because she was jealous she wasn't getting married first, but then our rich aunt stepped in and did something that made her regret everything. I decided to go ahead and press charges for the dress destruction after Sarah showed up at my workplace having a meltdown. Security had to remove her and my company has now banned her from the premises. The police gave her a warning about harassment. Aunt Linda has been amazing through all of this. She's helped me get a restraining order against Sarah and has offered to let James and me stay at her vacation house for a while until things calm down. We're seriously considering it. My parents are still taking Sarah's side and have now cut contact with both me and Aunt Linda. It hurts, but I'm realizing that maybe some distance from their enabling behavior isn't a bad thing. The real shock came yesterday when Sarah's ex Tom contacted me again. He revealed that Sarah had been lying about their relationship for years. They had actually broken up 2 years ago, but she convinced him to pretend they were still together because she was embarrassed about being single while I was in a serious relationship. She had been hoping he would eventually take her back, but my engagement pushed her over the edge. I'm still processing all of this, but I feel stronger every day. James has been my rock through everything, and Aunt Linda's support means the world to me. I've started therapy to deal with all the family drama, and it's really helping. Sarah is still trying to contact me through mutual friends, but I'm staying firm with no contact. Her latest story is that she's going to sue Aunt Linda for promising her the inheritance, but any lawyer will tell her that's ridiculous. I don't know what the future holds for my relationship with my twin sister. Part of me misses the closeness we once had, but I realize now that it was built on me constantly giving in to her demands. I deserve better than that. Final update: it's been 6 months since everything happened, and I wanted to give you all one last update. Life has completely changed, mostly for the better. The weeks following my last update were intense. Sarah's harassment escalated to the point where she was showing up at my workplace daily, causing scenes in the lobby. She would alternate between screaming at me and breaking down in tears, begging for forgiveness. It all came to a head when she tried to crash a business dinner I was having with important clients. That incident finally opened our parents' eyes to how serious the situation was. They had been in denial about Sarah's mental state, making excuses like they always had. But watching their daughter being escorted out of an upscale restaurant by security while screaming incoherently about inheritance and stolen thunder. Well, they couldn't explain that away. Sarah ended up having a complete breakdown the next day. She barricaded herself in her old bedroom at our parents' house and threatened to hurt herself if they didn't fix things with Aunt Linda. That was the wake-up call they needed. They finally convinced her to get professional help, though it took 3 different psychiatrists before she found one she clicked with. She's been diagnosed with several mental health issues, including borderline personality disorder and severe anxiety. Looking back, the signs were always there: her intense fear of abandonment, the extreme reactions to perceived slights, the inability to regulate her emotions. But our parents had always dismissed it as normal sibling rivalry or typical twin dynamics. Now she's in intensive therapy, taking medication, and genuinely working on herself. Her therapist helped her write me a heartfelt apology letter that was different from her previous manipulative attempts at reconciliation. Instead of making excuses or trying to share blame, she took full responsibility for her actions and acknowledged the pain she'd caused me throughout our lives, not just with the wedding dress incident. A month after my last update, the criminal charges were resolved through a plea deal. Sarah has to pay restitution for the dress and complete anger management classes. She's actually taking it seriously, which is a first. James and I moved to a new city for his job and are loving our fresh start. After settling into our new home for a few months, we discovered we're expecting our first baby next spring. Aunt Linda cried tears of joy when we told her she's going to be a great aunt. My parents have finally started facing their own role in this mess. After months of family counseling, they're beginning to recognize how their enabling behavior and constant excuse-making for Sarah contributed to all of this. During one particularly emotional session, my mom broke down and admitted that they had failed both of us, Sarah by never setting boundaries or requiring her to face consequences, and me by expecting me to always be the one to compromise and keep the peace. We thought we were protecting Sarah, my dad confessed, but we were actually making things worse. And we hurt you deeply in the process. I don't know if you can ever forgive us, but we want to try to make things right. They've apologized to me multiple times and are genuinely working on rebuilding our relationship, though it's a slow process. I'm still working through years of resentment about being the family scapegoat, and they're learning to respect my boundaries. We've started having weekly family dinners, without Sarah for now, where we're slowly relearning how to communicate honestly with each other. The biggest surprise came last week. Tom is actually dating one of my bridesmaids now. Sarah surprisingly took the news well, which shows she's making progress in therapy. She told our mom she realizes now that her behavior was completely unacceptable and she has a lot of work to do on herself before she's ready for a relationship. I'm sharing this final update to show that sometimes hitting rock bottom is what people need to make real changes. I'm cautiously optimistic about eventually having a healthier relationship with my sister and parents, but I'm no longer willing to set myself on fire to keep others warm. Thank you Reddit for all your support through this crazy journey. I'm closing this chapter of my life and focusing on my husband, our upcoming baby, and our bright future ahead.